Hi, I'm Rick Dior, and today we're going to talk about playing some pop or Motown conga styles. That was a pretty busy solo. I normally would not play Motown music like that, but I was trying to warm up my hands here. It's kind of cold today, and I've got my little drums out. These are the Gon Bops congas from many, many years ago, and these are small drums. This drum right here is about a 10 and a quarter, and this drum here is about 11 and a quarter. So I really like playing these drums a lot. You've seen them in some of my earlier conga videos that I showed you. So I recently played a really great Broadway show called Aint Too Proud. It's the story of the Temptations, and it has a really, really nice conga book there. There's two percussionists. One person plays tambourine, shaker, some different cowbells, a little bit of bongos. And the other player plays mostly congas, but also plays some shaker and a little bit of tambourine. But I played the conga book, and I really, really enjoyed it. Great band. They had a great drummer with them, and we were not in the pit. We were in this trap room under the stage. So that happens sometimes when they can't fit everybody in the pit, and this was the case for that. And so we were in this room with the percussionist. The drummer was in his own isolation booth in that room, and also three horn players were in there. That's a common thing that happens. Sometimes on Broadway, you're in an actual different building. I remember, I think the producers of Ben Herman was in a different building for that show, which is great because you just show up in your shorts and play the show. Now, this show was different because at the end of the show, you have to actually get up on stage and play and do some choreography, which I was very happy to do, and you get paid a little more for that, and that's also a lot of fun. So we did that as well. So today, what we're going to do is go through some of the rhythms in this book, and I took some video when I was playing the show of an overhead shot. So you'll hear that, see that throughout, so you can see what I'm doing there. And I also wanted to show you some of the notation that you'll normally see. There is no standard notation for conga parts. There's been attempts over the years. I have my own notation I use, but there's still, you're not going to see any standard notation. So normally it's just rhythms that you'll see with little pluses or minuses, sometimes an open sound. And normally the plus sounds, as in this case, are going to be slapped, but sometimes they're palm sounds. So you've got to interpret these. It's kind of like a big band drum chart. I just got done with that series where I showed you how to interpret those things. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to interpret these written conga parts that are very, very simple, but you need to play them a particular way. Now, normally for these shows, you just have one rehearsal, and then you go and play the show. You have opening night, and you play it for a week or two, or sometimes a month, as in Wicked, which I did recently. This one went only for a week, so I could fit it into my schedule. And like I said, it was really fun, great band, and so everything locked in right from the get-go, no issues at all. So what I'm going to put on the screen here will be the percussion part, which is divided into two columns. You'll see top and bottom, and the bottom is the conga part. So that's actually percussion 2, although there's a little mix-up where it really should be written as percussion 1. So, but that's not a big deal. But the percussion 1, you'll always see that's the other person playing, and you'll hear that too. Now, as far as listening, when I play these tracks for you, that was going through a headphone mix. So it's not the greatest mix. It's just the mix that I was hearing. So there's a lot of drums and very little stage sound or anything like that. Not a lot of horns, not a lot of strings. There are live strings in the show as well. But I just, try to put in there what I need, which is definitely a lot of drums to play off of that, and definitely bass and piano, as you'll hear. There is a click track. About 95% of the show is on click. So you'll hear that going. That's extremely important. And they use that so they can get the choreography correct, any other sound effects they use. That's all on click. Those tempos need to be right on because that choreography is amazing. And if you're, one or two clicks fast or slow, it really messes up the performers. So most of these kinds of shows, I did Motown, the musical as well, a few years back, and that was also mostly on a click. So we'll start with this tune called Runaway Child, which is, so it's called Runaway Child, Running Wild. All these tunes were famous Temptations tunes. Some of them in the show are from other groups, and they were kind of the music of the times, but it's all kind of Berry Gordy, Motown stuff. A lot of great music. So you'll see here, what I'm going to put on the screen, this is the first real conga part that happens in the show. And it's very, very important because you're playing this Tumbao feel, and they call it a double time feel, but it's just a standard Tumbao feel, but it's 2 cycles per measure. So instead of being in cut time, you're in 4/4. So everybody knows this rhythm. If you watch my other videos, my conga videos, you'll see this, but that rhythm goes like this. Now, normally for the Motown sound, you do not want to play a real loud slap. It's not like the Afro-Cuban slap. If you could play a salsa gig or something, you're going to be slapping much more. These slaps are a little lighter. So when I play this for you, this recording here in a second, you'll see it's a little bit of different sound. Also, they travel with their own drums, the congas, and they want you to play those. So these drums are pearl. They're good drums. They're big though, and I'm used to playing smaller drums. So sometimes on the bigger drums, it's a little harder to get a slap. But that's good because you don't want the slap to be too prominent. So let me go ahead and play this cut for you, and I'll play them in a row. This will be bar 5 to 16, and then 16 to 29, and then 68 to 87, and then I'll comment a little on that. So you saw there a number of different kind of iterations of that Tumbao pattern. So sometimes I'm playing it straight like this. And sometimes I'm playing it like this. Now that's because sometimes we have underscoring. So when there's underscoring, you got to play a little bit softer. And a lot of times the sound man will take that into their own hands. But here I will pretty much get away from the standard loud slap like I was talking about earlier and just play it, just drop my hand on the drum. As opposed to here I'm just doing. So you just want a little bit of an accent there, but not a high pop to draw, attention to that. So again, that's just groove and it's underscoring. The most important thing with a tune like this is to lock in to that click and the drums. There's a lot of long vamps that happen. So you see the notation of how all we have is these rhythms and then the plus sign. That is going to be your slap. obviously. And then the slashes mean you just play time all the way through. There's some things that are not written there, and I wrote those in on my particular parts, just little kicks and whatnot. All right, and that's common. So the one thing that you heard at the end there at bar 68 is that all of a sudden it goes into a halftime feel like this. So actually, let me play that again. I'm going to play this little clip for you again from there to the end.
3, 4.
So what happens there is the click adjusts to the tempo immediately, which is tricky. So you've got to go from one tempo to another and just nail it. That's why you need to have the click up in your feed pretty loud. The next big conga part in this show is called I Want to Love, I Can See. And this is just a standard cha-cha groove, nothing hard about it. You have the wiro playing. And again, this tumbao gets used all the time in this music. So that groove is going to be... So let me play this, this cut for you real quick. So you see on that music that's on the screen that I am not playing exactly the rhythm that's written. It's okay, you can ad lib and do things like that. And definitely maybe go back and listen to the original and to see what they played. A lot of times those drums are tuned pretty low on those recordings. So they're approaching it a little different than, again, your standard Afro-Cuban kind of conga sound. It's more of a lower melodic sound. But those rhythms came directly out of that music. And once again, you see the slash notation. And at bar 19, there's some more kicks that I actually wrote in that aren't in the chart. So be aware of all that kind of thing. And you'll see this a lot in these shows, something called a vamp. So a vamp is a repeating figure or number of measures that there's usually dialogue in, and the conductor will cue those in. So you're just playing along there, and then he gives a cue, and then you skip to either the next vamp or you go on to the rest of the tune, as happened in this tune. So once again, a standard tumbao for this kind of thing. And the early Motown stuff was a lot of that. So the early Temptations, they used a lot of those grooves. Later on, as you'll see, you get into a lot of different things. So the next one is Get Ready. Everybody knows this tune. And this one just has a short little conga part at the end. Starts on verse 2. So we'll play you this so you can see how this goes. So you see there, that's Tumbao again, but on the chorus, I'm changing my groove to. So that's a little bit of a double time figure. You can use that sparingly to create a little more excitement. So going from. Now you probably noticed my open hand technique that I use on the congas, and I talked about that in my earlier conga videos. If you go back, I'll put them in the description of this video. I'll list them all so you can reference those. I play a lot of different kinds of things. I play a lot of mallet instruments and a lot of drum set, as you know. I play it with an orchestra professionally, and a lot of times, if you play with a closed hand technique like that, this part of your hand bears the brunt of that, and your fingers, so it desensitizes your hand over time. I learned this the hard way when I was in school and playing. I was playing gigs in Spanish Harlem, which is basically way uptown New York. That's how I was paying my rent for years, and we play those, from 12 a.m. all the way to 4 a.m. On the weekends. And when I started, playing my regular way, my hands were so swollen and raw that, on Monday when I went in to have my timpani lesson or tried to practice, mallet things or play sensitive snare drum stuff, there was nothing there. I could barely feel the sticks. So I kind of started playing this open-handed thing where I kind of splay my fingers out like this. And what that did, it really relaxed my hand a lot, and it took a lot of the soreness away. Now, if you have to play really, really loud, unmiked, with a dance band, like a salsa band, that's probably not going to work because it's probably not going to be loud enough. You would need to be mic'd. The other way is much louder. But for this kind of thing, for orchestras and these kinds of shows where you're heavily mic'd, in the orchestra not necessarily, but it's just not that loud in an orchestra. But when you're dealing with a whole salsa band, it's loud and you need to cut through. So you'd use a much heavier technique. The slaps would be heavier. So that open-handed technique is what I use to play this stuff. So then I have no problem moving right over, and even within a couple bars, playing a mallet part or a quiet snare drum part. In an orchestra gig, you do that all the time. You're going from hand drums to other things. So that's just something to keep in mind. And you'll see me play like that through these videos. The next tune is a real great tune. Everybody loves this one, Ain't Too Proud to Beg. And once again, it's got the tumbao, but this one's a little different because this is actually a conga solo. And on the chorus, it's got that famous one. So what you're doing there is you're just playing that. It's kind of a part that's part of the tune. That's, that you hear that, and the congas in the mix of the original are really prominent. So the way I execute this, the first way on the chorus, I'm actually doing. So ghosting really quietly here with my left hand. But then on the verse, I'm doing it with one hand like this. So you'll see that. And that's to make sure the timing is absolutely perfect because they're doing all this choreography. That's amazing if you ever get to see the show. So let's play you this clip of this. So you see there how I did all that with one hand. The other option would be to do this. That works as well. You can dead stroke that palm on the left hand. So moving on, we have If I Could Build My World Around You. So now we come to more of the rock pop conga things. And the first one is I'm Losing You. So I have a specific way I play these in my book and on the videos that I referenced earlier. I have a lot of these things. The last couple pages of the conga rhythms in my book, I do a lot of pop and rock. But there's a couple different ways to play. You can almost play like a drum set player here. So let me show you what I play on this tune as well as showing you the music. So you see there how I changed it up from the verse to the chorus, get a little busier on the chorus. But I am playing backbeats with the drummer there. Okay, you don't have to do that. You could play like almost like a semi tumbao there. But on a lot of these, it really helps beef it up, fatten it up to play those backbeats. So that's more of a pop style. You see the way it's written, you have lots of leeway to what you can do there. So again, keep it simple, listen to the original, but the groove, the pocket is what's so important. So this next one is a tricky one. I Could Never Love Another. It's not tricky physically, it's just tricky because it's one of these nooks and crannies tempos, 107. And in the beginning, you're the conga player. You're playing the groove. There's hardly any drums. There's a little bit of shaker, but this goes on and on forever. A lot of dialogue. And what I do, you'll see I put this little cloth to muffle the drum. It says muffled. And the writing here says low conga slap, and then it says literal. That means they want you to play that rhythm. But I did add a slap like this. That really held it together, and the music director seemed very happy with that. Apparently some of the players were playing it, just straight, and it was hard to lock in. So let me play you some of this, and you'll see what I mean.
You are officially removed from your duties as a temptation. What? When the time came to kick Ruffin out, nobody said a word to defend him. Not even Eddie. How are you supposed to have a group out? We all too tired of this. There wouldn't be no group out. That's not true. Notice, back on the screw. Everybody knows that. Man, I can't believe.
So at bar 17, you see there all of a sudden, you kind of go into the full tune there. And that's where you play a true slap there. So you're still playing that rhythm, but you're opening it up. Instead of the low drum, you're doing the high drum. So that's the end of the first act. And then the second act opens with probably the fun, the most fun you're going to have in the show as far as just a funky groove. So this is Can't Get Next to You, very famous tune, and they really dance amazing in this one. And that rhythm, you have a lot of leeway. All they write, as you see here, are these 16th notes, so you can funk it up. So. Again, you're not playing like a traditional, Afro-Cuban or Latin conga player. Here you're playing almost like sort of a drum set kind of thing on the congas to lock that in. It's a style of playing that's, fairly difficult if you're not used to doing it. And I remember when I first started playing this stuff, I played so many years of salsa gigs and all other kinds of traditional things that I had a hard time with it. I just had to get used to that. So let me play this clip for you so you can hear it with the music. So you see there at bar 41, that drum break. And again, that doesn't mean you just go crazy. That means you lock in something. So I listened to what the drummer was playing and I tried to, go with that. Not play exactly what they're doing. So I ended up, more or less with something like that. It could vary a little, but got to make sure you don't step on that. It needs to sound really clean. It shouldn't sound like, someone falling down the stairs, okay? So that's something to always keep in mind. And then the next tune we have is a very famous tune called War. And this one is, it's pretty intense. It goes on for a very short time in the show, but you'll see here on the clip, I play pretty hard on it. And then there's some underscoring, and right there, that's just basically the congas. So you're just doing a... just a much smaller version of what you did earlier. So let's hear that. Next, we have Ball of Confusion, which is another fun tune, and it's a difficult tempo. Now, the percussion two-player, which was me, I play this shaker, and this thing goes on for a really long time. There's nothing to it, but you just got to keep it going, and then you build it up at 18, and right away you put it down, and you go right to the congas. Now, it says some congas and bongos here. I just used congas because the bongos were in a different spot and they only had one set there and there was no room where we were to put anything else in. And it sounds just fine without it, but in a perfect world, I would probably put the bongos above the congas. They were not doing that at all, but and you play between the two. But it sounds just fine on the congas. And the drums are pretty busy on this one, so you don't want to play too much. And you see as it goes along here, it's just 16th notes again, and it says less busy, more busy, and that kind of thing. The main thing here is just pocket. And when you have a lick like you have at 53, you can do that a couple different ways. You can also do it slapped if you want. There I did it hand to hand. A couple nights I did it slapped. So the next one we have is Superstar, and this is a really fun tune. It lays really well. It's a good tempo. You're in at 11. I did put a tie in on that to make it At 19, you have this verse here, and you'll see this when I play it, but you get much simpler there. And then you go back to that double time feel. So a lot of these tunes are like that. Half time feel, double time feel, and that varies from verse to chorus. So let me play that for you. Finally, the last part of the show that has a big conga part is this tune Cloud Nine, which is intense. And this is probably the trickiest tune in the show as far as cues and vamps and things like this. So same kind of thing here. Now this is written as kind of a tumbao, where you have the accent on the second beat. You can play it like that, and I did that some nights, or you can play it with backbeat. Which I did some other nights. And I ended up preferring that way, that I just played. But towards the end, you will play some tumbao, as you'll hear when I play this for you. This tune is complex, and they're a little more literal in what they want, as you see here, the screen. Now, when we get to this part at 73, you'll see it gets very complicated with all the syncopation. So let me play this for you. So you see there how there's a lot of drum fills and you're catching those figures. As a conga player, you need to catch those figures. Don't just play through them. So you saw me catch all those. And, you see the difference then between the halftime feel and then the double time feel. It's not that much, but you are playing more notes. So the tumbao and the okay, so those two feels go back and forth. But throughout this, you've seen this notation, how just bare bones it is. It's not telling you what, if you're playing an open tone, you're playing heel toe, you're playing palm, you're playing, low, high. There's a little of that, but not much. So you've got to do your research. You've also got to learn all kinds of different patterns. So when you get to that rehearsal, if the music director says, I don't like that, or the drummer says, I don't like that, you need to be able to turn on a dime and change these things to make them happy. So thanks, and we'll see you next time.